Check it out. Made a great discovery today, people. Ed Piscor here, working on some Red Room pages. Back to the Rat Queens issue, because the big discovery that I made was that I was off about my deadlines on this other project by 2 months, which means I don't have to be in a rush the way that I thought I was going to have to be. So back to the Rat Queens. This is the money shot panel, and let's see if we can knock this bastard out in a stream. Been pretty good about keeping busy and on task like that. Did some real meaningful work the past couple of streams. It was a week of cover drawing. What I want to try to be mindful is, because these are gnarly, gross creatures, so like, let's not be smooth with the line. But boys and girls, sharpen your pencils, stir up your ink, put on your game jerseys. Let's clock in and do some business. Who all had the chance to see that duotone video that we did earlier? That's the final process for these Red Room pages. So you got to keep in mind that the work that you see here is about 75% of what will be on the page. It's always a little undone, but you guys don't seem to mind. Haha, Lethal Protector, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. Do TVs still get burnt in, by the way? I wonder. Easterly, what's going on? Yeah, the conversation with the Batman Year One vid is a good one. Every time Jimmy and I kind of go our separate ways after a recording session, then it's almost immediately time to edit some vids and just put the intro on, all that bullshit. And I almost always hit him up and I'm like, dude, we had a great session today. Never realized it at the time. So what I'm drawing here, this is the final Rat Queen, the winner, the lone survivor. There can be only one, and boy, doesn't she look happy. When I was floating this story to Jimmy, and I was telling him I'm getting close to roughing out this page, he made a real good note and was just like, dude, you got to make sure that these heads are freaking heavy. How am I selling that? Cock that head to the side, man. Straight up horizontal. Keep her crouching. She's emaciated and gnarly. She can't stand up with all those heads. We learned from Jerry Maguire that the human head is weighs 8 pounds. That's like 45... say 47 pounds of domes right there. Happy Friday, but in these COVID times, it's hard to make any distinctions about weekday, weekend, any of that stuff. Uh, when the camera is off here in the crib, the same shit is happening. The only difference is that I'm able to watch a movie or something while I'm on the grind, without fear of copyright strikes or whatnot. Put on some tunes. But I have to check in to see how the Kayfabe crew is doing. One of the great consequences of doing these streams is that I can't sneak off and go play Chrono Trigger for an hour or two, you dig? Keeps me on task. Chilling in a crib with like 70,000 comic books. I can't get up and just start digging in long boxes and getting aimless, thinking about what would make a cool video next week. Yeah, glad you guys checked out that duotone vid. That was a fun one. Like, that's the shit that Jimmy and I totally enjoy getting into on the channel. Kurako, live and in full effect from Hawaii. Thanks for that super chat. A Chrono Trigger comic would be dope, because it was Akira Toriyama who drew that stuff and designed those characters anyhow. So we know what Dragon Ball comics look like. Ooh, I just imagine like no lips on this motherfucker. If you're new to the streams, like the first part of the process for me is to just lay down the bolder, thicker lines. So there'll be kind of like a kind of main shape, and then the drawing really comes into focus when I start busting out these micron pens, these fine line markers. Start getting busy. Gotta thank you guys once again for the pre-orders that you've done so far for Red Room. It's only been 2 weeks, and you exceeded the amount of pre-orders that I was hoping for the entire tenure of pre-sale. So I'm officially in greedy position and want to see just how high we could get this number. So somebody has to, really clock in. And if you guys are looking for some gnarly hardcore comics, if you appreciate the channel and dig the vids and stuff, hit the Patreon, hit the pre-order button. Get a fresh direct copy of Red Room sent to your doorstep. It's going to be available for shops to order. I guess at the end of the month is when the next previews magazine's going to come out, catalog, where the stores can order the comic. Yeti Punk, I definitely remember that Splatterhouse comic. That was one of those instances where advertising absolutely worked on me. That was ubiquitous in those 1990 comic books. I was in 3rd grade, and that's what I got for Christmas that year. TurboGrafx 16, Splatterhouse, 2 bunk games, China Warrior, JJ and Jeff, and Pac-Land, I think. Mom and Dad went crazy. And there was, I lived in this apartment complex for a year that year. Like, my dad would he was a freelance like mill worker basically. So he was real. We were real flush for like 1 year there, and in the apartment complex we lived at, there were so many kids to hang out with, and like I said, I was in 3rd grade. Out of like 3-4 dozen kids, like no exaggeration, a dozen of them just on our street alone, maybe half dozen in our building. Out of all of these people that we were kicking it with, only one other dude had TurboGrafx 16, and he was an 8th grader. So I'm like a little 3rd grade dude, and my mom is like real, like weirded out about some like old ass 8th grade dude hanging out with a 3rd grader, but she just didn't realize that there are games to play. So we got to trade and swap those hue cards. But that's all. Thinking about it, that's the only other person I've ever known that had the TurboGrafx 16. Built-in turbo buttons on the controllers, and it actually made the games way easier. MG, thanks for pre-ordering Red Room. Thanks for grabbing Octobriana as well. Jimmy and I are absolutely cartoonists first. This YouTube thing was a fun project that seemed like a good idea at the time, at the beginning. Let's take a look at some Wizard magazine issues. We got them. We have them here collecting dust. Let's put these things to use. In all of our travels, the conversation always seems to go back to that kind of stuff. So let's get some shit on record. And by the time we did our first video, we put up a couple of trailers, like 3 videos ahead of time, to just kind of like let people know what was coming. And what happened from that was we had maybe 3,000 subscribers ahead of time or something before we launched that first vid. And when we put that first vid out, it was very clear, like, okay, yeah, like we were tapped into our crew, like the like-minded people of our demographic or whatever who grew up with Wizard magazine and whatnot. But then it became a thing of like, what else can we do with this? I'm just trying to debate on like how I want to tear up these heads. There's little to no continuity between the pages of one head, and you're not going to be able to keep track of the heads page after page. When I draw these eyeballs, I just think of like cherry tomatoes or something. Yeah, Vince Locke is awesome. I could only wish to have a Vince Locke vibe. The thing about the outlaw cartoonists is that they really luxuriate the drawing process. Really spend a lot of time trying to perfect an anatomy and those sorts of things. But because I write my comics and sort of handle everything, you can't do it all. Like when you look at those old Frank Miller Daredevils, they're very rough when it comes to the art because the guy has such little time and has a lot of responsibilities. So it's like you gotta. That's sort of the fun. You get to see where the creative person places their value. That's why I really don't fuck with collaborative comics, because it's just what I need out of comics is just different than what the usual collaborative stuff can offer. But it's really fun to see where a person places their value when they have that kind of hard goal of a tight deadline or whatever. You know, that's what I like to see in Michel Fife's Copra comics. You know, see where he's putting his attention. Yeah, Pippin, that's a good way to put it, because certainly we announced Red Room exactly 2 weeks ago, 2 Fridays ago. And the amount of extra work that has come from this is astounding. And I worked ahead quite a ways. I'm very confident that I'll be able to hit all of my marks. We live in crazy times right now, and it does seem like we're all gonna catch the COVID in some form or fashion at some point, man. So it's like, hopefully it doesn't jack me up too much that I can't, that I stay down for a long time. Obviously, I'm gonna try not to get it, but you know what I'm saying. In a lot of ways, I feel pretty lucky, because last year 2020 was going to be a production year anyhow. Like, I did exactly what I was planning to do with no barriers, and in fact perhaps even enhanced a little bit because of the ability to just say no and not be able to go out and kick it and shit. The work that I was able to accomplish in 2020 was about double what I can usually get done in a regular year. And that's all well and good. You know, I don't want to keep that kind of thing going for life, because you gotta live a life, I guess. Because it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon, but you know what I'm saying. I don't know what kind of art table this is, light box this is, but this is definitely the same one from that Marvel book that we were looking at with Mark Texiera sitting there drawing. I have his light box, the one that you could get at Pat Catan's. I have no idea if YouTube demonetizes for talking about the virus, because we're here to talk comics. I'm just kind of filibustering for a second, trying to explain the process. But gearing up all last year to get a bunch of stuff done, it does feel scary now, knowing that I have all these marks to hit. And there's a new month every 30 days, so new books need to come out. And I'm done with the principal comics of 4 issues. This is the 5th. But there's extra stuff that needs to be done. Like today, earlier, I spent 3 hours editing the text in issue 1 and kind of formatting it for comic size, getting it ready to go. But I still have 2 pages that I have to fill. And then inside covers. I'm going to be honest with you. Those 1963 comics that we've been checking out, they are deeply in my mind when it comes to thinking about how I want to design Red Room. All the weird ads and stuff that are associated. My mind is in that place right now. Because every issue is its own kind of singular story, I think that the design mechanics of each issue can be its own thing as well. We'll see. Just for time's sake, it might be wise to have a bit of a template for myself. Ooh, this guy will have some busted bottom lip with just gnarly sag skin. Yeah, that duotone vid was fun because it's just like our chance to take a look at some of those rad ass old comics, and they're the kind of comics that you can't make those anymore. You know, like you cannot get that tool. One of the Kayfabe crew a couple weeks back found a small lot of duotone on eBay. Ended up buying it. It was about $350 for around maybe 6 sheets, and some developer but I don't even think enough developer to handle all those sheets. And those sheets, if you're working 11 by 17, you could get 2 pages. So what is that? 12 to 16 pages of standard comics. Or do what I did. You know, if you find it, grab it. Have a little discipline, and don't go with the impulse to draw on it, but just develop the whole sheets, scan them in so that you could use them forever. And it's not like some perfect antiseptic computer filter or whatever, because it's got to be raw. Like it ain't underground. It ain't like Outlaw Comics if it's perfect. You got to see the brush strokes of those lines. You got to see some of the grittiness of it. Right on X9, super cool that you grabbed some issues of 1963. You know, like we did that first one, the Mystery Incorporated vid. And when Jimmy and I were talking, we were like, oh, this is going to be huge, man. Everybody has this comic and blah, blah, blah. We were pretty shocked that when the video went live, a lot of people were like, what is this? This looks cool. And one of the cool things about that for us, and certainly for me, is that I feel like the reaction that some of you had was the exact reaction that I had when I picked that comic up for the first time. I just got the first 3 issues of 1963 in these grab bags when I was a kid. It was like 10 Image comics for $10 or something, and it would be just these smorgasbord grab bags of B-list titles. So it's like I got Stormwatch and Bloodstrike comics, certainly an issue or two of Trencher. None of the principal titles were included because at the end of that speculator boom, there seemed to be the artificial price of those books were still in effect. Like, it took me years to be able... No, that's not true. It took maybe a year or two to get a Spawn #1 for like $2 or something. I don't think it's burying the lead, because you guys have seen that we've been doing a 1963 video every week, that we recorded the last issue, Tomorrow's Syndicate, and it was with a heavy heart, just knowing the great potential and promise of it and sort of what it amounted to. Wildcats went for $30 as a kid. Those like serial entrepreneurs, man, that kind of came into the game. It's obviously I want comics to be healthy. I want comics to be good and sustaining and a good business. It's none of those things. The people in positions of power are cornballs. So it's like we get the business of comics that we kind of deserve until some real kind of business people kind of get in the mix and make some real shit happen. But when there was some money in comics during that speculator boom, it's not like it was a great thing in a lot of ways, man. You had these creepers coming into the game that were just very excited to figure out various ways to divest young children of their allowance money. And that's all the way up, man, to the business heads in comics. All these weird little satellite companies were coming out. We did that shoot interview, one of the early shoot interviews with Ron Friends. And in one of the Wizard episodes we were talking about, he was highlighted as, in the early issues, as, signing 10,000 copies of Thunderstrike #1 that were then sold for $30 a piece or something. And we asked him what the model of that was. He was given $1 a signature for 10,000, spent, a weekend, 2 days signing comics. I think about my own experiences at that time when I was legitimately excited about those comics. I had no friends that were into comic books in any real way. There was a lot of kids at school that were doing it, playing the speculator game. It was weird people. It literally was high school football players that hipped me to the existence of Image Comics, because all that I knew was Kmart, Hill's Department Store, the grocery store. Didn't know anything about comic shops. And here they are. They got these binders with plastic sleeves, man, that are just perfect comic size, and they have their Image Comics in there. I had a teacher, Mr. Wellman. He follows me on Twitter, actually. I like that guy a lot. I always did. Super cool. He was my sixth grade math teacher. In his classroom, he had that weekly, was it the Comic Buyer's Guide newspaper? And he just had those stacked up. So I guess like whenever he would take a break or something, lunch break, he would just check his net worth in the Comic Buyer's Guide. So like just a lot of weird people got into the game, and there was a magic shop that sold, illusion equipment and shit. Fish flavored gum, fake cigarettes, what the hell else? I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that we, Chinese finger traps, like all these like weird little tchotchke things. And that guy starts selling comics. And then there's like a little sports card store on the strip out here, man, starts selling comics. The newsstand always sold comics. It's a very small town, like 2,000 people or something, and there's 3 comic stores within 1,000 feet of one another. Just everybody was getting diamond accounts. One of the places where I would get my image books was a place called the Allentown Bakery. And that wasn't like a kitsch title. It was a fucking bakery. And these people, once again, serial entrepreneurs, man. There's money in comics. Let's open up this back storage closet, make it a comic shop, get a diamond account. And almost nobody would go there for comics, but it was there and it was a resource. So whenever a key issue of like, I remember getting Youngblood 10 out there with the Chapel Suicide 2-page spread, because at all the real comic shops it was sold out. So that was like my secret spot. You just go to Allentown Bakery, you walk past the bread loaves. I'm not joking. You walk past the muffins. You go to this back shady looking broom closet, and you got some spinner racks and some, I think they reappropriated some greeting card stands. Stack the comics in there. But, that's where I bought Extreme Sacrifice comics. Because they were always sold out at the real comic shops. So that's a very specious set of numbers that you see when you read about the amount of comic shops that existed, and all these comic shops went away. These comic shops were never long for this world. That's with quotes, these comic shops, because how many Allentown bakeries are there in 1992? I bet you quite a few. Just bouncing around the page here. Laying down these major lines. What time is it? 8:46. Ate an early dinner. I'm trying to keep rocking, get this whole image done before I clock out. Has anybody watched that Richard Ramirez Night Stalker Netflix series? I feel like that would be a good thing to watch before bed and induce some ridiculous nightmares that I could then bring into my comic. So I guess in some ways to finish the thought from earlier about sort of what we have here, like with the business of comics not being that, it's a cottage boutique little thing. is that you avoid a lot of situations like the that one video we did with the McFarlane Neil Gaiman stuff, where it's like it would be very silly. It's like a copyright battle now, man. I feel like you take that shit to small claims court and try to get $500 or something. But back then, those guys were playing for some big Willie money. Is the show like a documentary show? It's not. It's not an acted program, right? Like it's not a drama. I would have no interest in that. Documentary, cool. I got my money to buy comics from very modest allowance, delivered newspapers, and early on, before I could do newspaper gig, I would just not eat school lunch ever, and would just pocket the loot. School lunch was $1. Comics were $1. You could find the tax money to buy 5 comics between the couch cushions. 5 comics a week. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I spent a couple dollars on some arcade games when Mortal Kombat came out. I always wondered how people discovered the fatalities. That must have been in magazines or something, right? But Mortal Kombat came out when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, and all the kids were talking about that stuff. You could rip a guy's heart out. Ooh, let's get a gnarly ass hammer toe. I don't know if that's the right term for this twisted ass toe. I don't think so. That's just like arthritis or something. Whatever it is, fucking nasty. And that's the name of the game here. So GD, you're in the UK right now? Grew up on early 80s, 2000 AD. Were you getting those new? Or were you digging into your dad's stuff? When I was that like 6th grade kid, I discovered the Eagle Judge Dredd comics from Kmart. Kmart would sell multi-packs of comics. And more often, there would always be Eagle comics in these multi-packs. Robo Hunter, Strontium Dog. And the Judge Dredd comic that I chose, it came out way before Barney, the purple dinosaur, but Barney was out at the time, and some entrepreneurial smarty pants had the, I think it's like issue 6 or 7 of the Eagle Judge Dredd would be on the outer facing part of the multi-pack so that you could see it inside the poly bag. And it was the one where that Cursed Earth, I always call it Cursed Earth, the Cursed Earth saga with that tyrant. What the hell's a Satanus? Is that the name of the purple Tyrannosaurus Rex that's about to eat Judge Dredd? But anyhow, that caught my imagination. The title, Judge Dredd, that might be one of the great comic book titles to ever exist. I love those comics. Can't imagine ever drawing that character panel after panel. That just seems so freaking hard. Got to draw an eagle in multiple views several times a page, and that's just the thing that's sitting on a dude's shoulder. Now you got to letter a badge, a giant badge that's seen a million times. Chains. You got to have your collection of Judge Dredd comics on deck to get the costume right every time. Yes, rest in peace, Carlos Esquierza, or however you properly say the man's name. Great cartoonist. All of those like little like noodle lines, they were perfect for me when I first saw them. And his issues of those Eagle Judge Dredds are sick. The one with the kind of Russian Soviet invasion. I forget what that storyline was called. I love that stuff. Like that issue of Judge Dredd that I just talked about, that was my introduction to Brian Bolland. And I was freaking blown away, man. There's a dude in there with that kind of like flock of seagulls hair. And he's got a hand grenade for an earring. Yo, that's everything that a little 6th grade dude wants in comics. Let's bring some of that in comics. I feel like this shit right here is what a 6th grade dude wants in comics. Like, fuck that young adult bullshit. This is young adult bullshit. This is the stuff I would want to read if I was... Like, I don't even know what young adult means, by the way. Because it all seems like really like little kid shit. Like tween shit. The one story in that Judge Dredd, man, it's so funny how much that's burnt into my mind. But I think in that very issue is that little bear character with the big, cute, liquid-filled eyes, you know, just like big, shiny eyes. It's like a Ewok with like no mouth. And at the end, its little partner dies, and the Ewok has to bury it, and then starts crying. I'm not too proud to say that made me feel a little something. Tweak, yes, GD. We're on the same page, man. We are on the same freaking page. And yes, Mick McMahon is the illest. I really think that Frank Miller pulled a lot from Mick McMahon's ink line. And I'm talking about like Sin City era Frank Miller. You got to see this particular McMahon stuff I'm thinking of, and it would have been Judge Dredd, because he's a cartoonist that's gone through many evolutions. He's drawn in 3-4 very distinct styles, but there's like a period of his, I call it the Bigfoot Judge Dredd period, where the boots, he was like rocking platform boots like that thick and shit. Those are the lines that you got to see that will make you think of like the Big Fat Kill era, or the what was the Singular Sin City book that came out as a graphic novel where Miho is on rollerblades? That line. It's like this very specific period of Mick McMahon. Yeah, Sin City Hell and Back. If you haven't done so, pre-order those Red Room comics. We're really putting a dent in that. And I think there's literally a ton of them accounted for right now on the pre-order. So it's like, let's go for 2 tons. In the spirit of more crazy, insane, hardcore horror comics, they will come if Red Room's a hit. That's for damn sure. That cartoonist Bellardinelli might be one of the real standouts of those early 2000 ADs. And his work is just never collected for some reason. No, I don't like that. I don't like that film. These kind of like deflated boobs can really be sold with the duotone, because you add the grays like right here, and it really feels like there's substance here, substance up there, but just flat, like right in that middle part. Yeah, thanks for the props on the Duotone comics. And yes, those Turtle comics are freaking sick. You want to get the Return to New York issues, inked by Talbot, and then the last one by Eastman for sure. You want to get that Turtle Shock with the it's a collection of all the short stories that were done throughout the 80s. Like the Turtles were such a hot property that if they just showed up in a comic, like that comic would fucking sell tens of thousands. So Eastman and Laird were real good about that. You know, when Fantagraphics was in one of their lawsuits, they put out a comic called Anything Goes, and even on the cover there was a Kevin Eastman Turtles illustration. Might be my first Fantagraphics comic, now that I think about it. Colored turtle story inside. Crumb story inside. Two weird duck husband and wife character. I got that comic, that Anything Goes number 3, I think it was. Got that one at a hardware store here in town. That was a part of a multi-pack, three comics, and I have no idea how or who put these multi-packs together. They looked, you know, they had some kind of printed thing in there. That's which suggests that it was put together by some outside business or whatever. But the comic set you would get, like I think I got a couple Fausts. I got Kamui comics that would just show vile. It would show a lot of bad stuff, we'll put it that way. It was wild. You know, the comics were in the toy section, so they just automatically assumed comics are for kids. They didn't get the memo. They didn't read that issue of they didn't read that 1986 issue of Every Magazine on the Stands with the Biff Bang Pow. The fun stuff is about to begin very soon. Man, I just imagine like a black shadow right there, because the abdomen is so much deeper than the rib cage. There's like no organs inside. Fucking foul. Issue 13 missing, huh? Could that be a Mark Martin issue? I promise you there's a lot more issues missing the more of those books you get, because I know that the Rick Veitch, the River issues aren't printed. I would wonder if issue 8, the Cerebus issue, I think at a certain point Davison was just like, nah, that's enough. No more of those ones. You really got to try to seek those old joints out. Michael Dooney showed up in the comments for the TMNT Artisan Edition that we were showing off, and Jimmy very wisely compared and contrasted the first collection, from First Comics of the first issues, and made the discovery that the art is redrawn for the first collections, and he very clearly explains it. Like the duotone comics are the duotone comics, but the line art, and showed direct examples of just completely different inking. And when we did the Eastman shoot, he said that, they just made Xeroxes and printed from Xeroxes, and it was like Dooney said the same thing, and it's like, it's not true. Like, that is not true at all. Like, you can look at the first comics, you can look at the duotone pages, the bold lines that were done in ink are not the same lines. Somebody traced it off and retouched it up. We're not saying that there's like a scam issue of TMNT art out there or something. We're just saying that the first comics, the color comics, were not shot from the line art of the very first issue. E. Lawrence asks, you guys ever plan to do a Cerebus deep dive or a Dave Sim shoot? I think about this time last year, when somebody connected with Sim reached out to us, and we were getting that moving. We were going to put together a Dave Sim interview. Excuse me. The internet that he would use for Zooms and stuff, was it's at a cafe. It's not his house. So that's put the kibosh on it. I guess his internet isn't too good at his home or something. But at some point, if whenever we pick him up again, if he's able to do it, yeah, sure, man. That guy is a steward of a lot of very specific comic book information from the history of the game. One of the outliers of the original direct market. Like, tell me a story, man. Let's hear it. That dude could make or break comics in the old black and white days. I don't know if there will be an Evangelion episode, just because, this is a comic book this is a comic book channel, but I can recommend. There's a Japanese comedic drama show. I guess it would be called a sitcom, called Blue Blazes. I think is the translation, and highly recommended. It's about the guys from. Is it called Gynax, the Evangelion company? Those guys go into art school with this mangaka, and just the kind of things that they went through as kids in art school. It's a very cool, very entertaining documentary. No, not a documentary, like a sitcom or whatever. Forgive me as I sit here trying to think and talk at the same time. Yeah, it was real fun interviewing Brendan McCarthy. That was one I didn't think would get to happen. Just never thought that it would be possible. Alright, I think I'll start hitting it with the marker. Yeah, the original director of Evangelion, he was one of the students that went to that art school, and was like the kind of virtuoso, the outlier of the crew. So they illustrate that in a lot of ways. Oh yeah, and a very cool thing that they would do on that show, Blue Blazes, was they would use his actual for real student artwork in the program. So they would have school assignments. You know, it was higher education, trade school. So it's like when they had an assignment, the stuff that they would show on the screen would be the legit exercises that the real artists would do. And then at the end, during the credit sequence, they would show the full-length scene. Yeah, Blue Blazes was a manga first. The mangaka, mostly known for, I don't know his name, maybe you do, and you can put it in the chat there, but mostly known for like a baseball manga. This is where this stuff really starts to materialize into a drawing. Let's see. Thinking about where the light is coming. Does anybody know if there's a good website to watch the translated Blue Blazes? Because the site that I would checked it out before is no longer in action, and I've been wanting to rewatch it for a while. Deadline Soup, it's some real stuff, man. I was super thankful very, very late last night while I was putting together the digital part of that cover I was working on, which I did complete before I went to sleep, and I checked out the deadline of when that was supposed to go down, and I was supposed to get that cover done by February 18th, but I thought I was supposed to get the whole comic done by then. And it's not like I was stressing. I would have got something in. I would have figured something out. But I have so much more time. It's not till April. So it's like I'm gonna make you guys a cool ass comic. Now that I have almost 2 months. But that's what makes it possible for me to finish up this issue. After this I have 2 more pages to ink, but I still have that previous page I gotta do a little work on. So essentially like 4 pages in some various stage of completion for issue 5. We got some good stuff coming up for you on the weekend. If you get a chance to watch some Kayfabe. I think I know what I'm going to put up for tomorrow. Got a little queue of stuff. And we like to always put our big video out on Sundays, almost like in the spirit of, or in honor of the Wizard Eps, which that was like the one day that we would put stuff up when we first started. And we definitely have a special comic ready to go for Sunday. Yeah, Duotone is awesome. Gonna plan a demo for next week. Just trying to think, like, what kind of shadow will I put in there with the duotone, and what will I allow the ink to do. First manga I ever read was probably those Link to the Past mangas that were in Nintendo Power. Kamui was the first manga that I really sought out. Like I said earlier, there was like a little hardware store that sold multi-packs, and it was the Kamui comics that would have been in there. That is what the kids at school were telling me about. This is the little hair knot from the Rat Queens. And then she's like holding up the head of this one. What's up, Sam? That's definitely true. Like, I could almost point out the weird little things that I draw and where I kind of stole them from. And it's all weird, different places. I'm happy with the angle of this hair. It looks like there's real tension there. Gotta have the errant hairs because I can't imagine that she would take the time to grab all the hairs. Now this is going to be the more tricky stuff because these heads are just laying, so there's no tension. Like all the tension should be here. So let's try to figure some stuff out. Where to begin? Where to begin? The physics of the hair on severed heads. The stuff I never thought I would have to figure out how to draw when I was a little dude. Drawing Spider-Man pictures. Messy now, but it'll be cool. Some slick back, like butthead hair. What was Butthead's haircut, by the way? No sideburns? Was it like a lazy mohawk? I always wondered. Yeah, thanks for checking out the duotone vid. That was a fun one to put together. That was one I've been excited to put together for a long time because it's an aesthetic I like a lot, but it just seemed to make extra sense to talk about it now since I'm doing, 250, 280 pages of duotone comics. Nah, Red Room isn't a play on Red Rum unless the original urban legend is a play on Red Rum, which actually seems to make sense now that you mention it. But my whole thing is about these urban legends. Like, if you even type it into YouTube, you'll see all these videos of people who are like, I was on the dark web and I think I found a real Red Room. Oh, you know what? Since this guy's in the foreground, his hair is going to be over this guy a bit. Oop, I didn't want that. Try to keep that nose good. Just a messy tangle. So gnarly. But ow. Almost want to put some frisket and mask off this more foreground head so that I don't start inking over top of it while I do my crazy hair. I've seen the guinea pig flicks before. Now, a couple of those guinea pig flicks were directed by Hideshi Hino, one of the great horror mangaka. And his art, there are characters that have faces like this kind of in there, so he's definitely an influence. There's like a specific number of good, American horror cartoonists. Many of them have passed, and there's like a similar vibe with Japan. You got your Drifting Classroom dude, you got Junji Ito, you got Hideshi Hino as like the Trinity. I will check out Society. I've not heard of that, but I liked Reanimator. I think I heard that the cartoonist Kim Deitch was in either the first Reanimator or second one. Get the winner's face to pop a little bit with some shadow underneath here. I've not ever spotted blacks first, but the first time I heard of that really was recently with, I think it was the Tim Truman Shoot interview that we did. He said something about being in a time crunch. That was like a trick he learned from Steve Bissett. Oh yeah, there should be like veins in here. Just means putting in black areas of ink. some of the hair's gotta. Good gnarly hand. Daniel W. Thanks for the super chat. And he asks a good question. Who else hanging out making comics at the same time as I am right here? It's a good use of all our times. Hang out, catch the vibe. Look at that crew, man. We got a crew of creative motherfuckers up in here. That's what's up. Certainly not a requirement, but it's cool to know you're out there. How much is the pandemic affecting what I'm creating? I am on it. I'll be honest. This idea came way before the pandemic, and it was always supposed to be hardcore. So the only way that it's really affected me is it's given me more time to just hang out and grind, get the work done faster. But this weirdness that you're seeing isn't like a consequence of me being locked down and not fucking with the usual people and all that kind of thing. Gotta remember to cut the characters up, give them little lacerations all over the place. And a lot of these shadows are going to be told in duotone. The fourth issue is going to be kind of formatted like an EC comic. But those old comics didn't exactly inform this work specifically. My thought is, like, what would EC look like today or something? Like, what are some cool modern horrors that if EC Comics was still around, what would they investigate? What would they make stories of? And I think the internet is a place where a lot of good, scary storytelling possibilities can exist. I think you would agree. No, not a ballpoint pen. These are like fine liner markers. Yeah, Copics. I use the microns as well, but the Copics are cool because the black ink stays black even if you erase over top. They last way longer. I think I could comfortably recommend them more than the Micron. Never used the Statler ones yet. Trying to show that the jaw is broken. It should connect there, but it's like jabbed up here, so that it has this massive underbite, this Beavis-like underbite. There's this video, like I wouldn't encourage you to go check it out, but I'm sure it's on YouTube, of this kid in a grocery store smacks two 2-gallon milks together, gets the milk all over the damn tile floor in the grocery store, and he tries to do some kind of move. He trips, busts his face off the ground, and when he gets up, his jaw's like this. Totally breaks it, and it's like pushed forward in a big way. One of those karma type videos. Yeah, there's going to be background in this panel. The character's just kind of like in a corner, though. So it's not a very detailed background. You know what, Jason? I wouldn't even know where to tell you where to get a good meal here in town. This COVID has definitely affected the region in a major way. It's not a very rich place to live, and so many of my favorite spots have shuttered in 2020. So when the time comes, I'm gonna have to find some new joints. Oh, you know what? I'll do it like... No, I know what to do. Nah. Take two. Come up with something better. piece is definitely coming along. I don't think it's going to get done as quick as I thought it might. I thought I would be able to do it on the stream, but I'm getting hungry. Gonna have to bounce in a second. I'm gonna pop that link for that pre-order one more time real quick before I head out. If you haven't pre-ordered already, man, scoop it up. Thousands of copies of Red Room have been reserved. Don't quote me on this, but I believe they are even getting the envelopes and stuff ready to go so that they could hit the ground running whenever the shipments arrive. Stores will be able to start ordering Red Room at the end of this month when the new issue of previews comes out. And we'll see what happens, you know. Maybe we're at the you guys are bearing witness to the ground floor of something big. That's the way it worked with Hip Hop Family Tree. Some of you were there for that. Showing off the little panels and stuff on Facebook. Then when that sucker first went live, man, that was a wrap. You know, I don't know Frank Miller's cover to Death Rattle. I'd be curious to check that out because a lot of those 80s issues kind of weak. Like, it's really hard to measure up to those old EC comics when it comes to that kind of storytelling. Man, I had no idea they went at least 18 issues on that last Death Rattle. No idea. The 70s ones are pretty cool. Partially collage. Now I'm really intrigued. You know, I don't think I ever really looked at an issue of Secret Wars before. Man, there's a lot I didn't do. I didn't do any work on that yet. On this leg. Just vicious. These characters were at war. Yeah, all the rat queens are from the same gene pool. Which kind of aids in their appearance. Red Room is going to be a monthly comic, with the exception of whenever trade paperbacks come out. The trade will sort of take place for that month's release. So it'll be May, June, July, August. 6 weeks go by, trade paperback. I think that's how it's going to go. Little bit of breathing room between book 4 and the trade, issue 4 and the trade. Then pick things up all over again, wash, rinse, repeat a couple of times. Put a big book out at the end. If you guys still are supporting it in a big way, let me do another 12. I got a million ideas for this universe. Let the market decide, you dig? Got ideas for what I'm going to do next, too. That I think a lot of people were going to dig. All my projects, like everything I want to do is a bit different than the previous, so it'll be fun to see who the Piscore fans are, and then you have the smaller factions of the hip-hop fans, the X-Men fans, the WYSIWYG people. SNAIL project. I remember that shit. My homeboy Kev, Boing Thump, the real Boing Thump. He's the one that was an aficionado of that shit, man. Saw some of that real life body horror, real life Cronenberg shit there. I wonder if those kinds of sites are like still captured on the Wayback Machine. Or do they just want the internet to fully forget about that craziness? I don't like that. What's going on, Joe? Welcome to the stream. Spud B, thanks for the super chat. Yeah, deleter white is good white medium that you could ink on top of. The ink gets absorbed really fast. You could draw over top of it pretty quickly. Doesn't smear. It's hard to find a good white medium. A lot of people just use white paint. I just have been using this whiteout pen because I'm being lazy. How about that? We've been at it for like a solid 2.5. Not bad. Control Z that. Control C. Z, I should say. Anyhow, back to this guy. We're getting close. Yeah, we're not far away from finishing. Let me take a quick pee break. BRB. And I guess we'll just put the final nails in this thing, hook up the background and stuff. Yeah. Cool, give me a sec. Border lines. All right, that's one. That's the corner. That's one wall. Psh, psh. And then there's that wall. There will be probably a different kind of screen used for the ground. Like I use like a little pebble textured coquille looking zipatone. Trying to think how I want this to be. Well, I think I'll just put some rest hairs on our lady here. This would be cool if there's less murder. You might want to stick to Lumberjanes, sir. This ain't the comic for you. Now, I'm actually debating on if I should do the details of the wall in screen tone or duo shade. See, that's what I didn't want. Oh, there'll be plenty of psychological tortures in Red Room coming up. I might have to think about this. Might not want to be too hasty. Because I have certain things I don't want hatch lines to bleed into the figure here, and I certainly don't want hatch lines to bleed into the figure there. So I don't know. You know what? I think I'm gonna have to bounce and get some food, look at it with fresh eyes, and diagnose it. See what it needs. Anyhow, I think that'll about do it for tonight's session. Everybody but Ted Wilson can pre-order the Red Room comic right there if you haven't done so already. Thousands of pre-orders have been reserved already. We're going to make a big strike with this comic. It's going to be fun. And it's a complete outgrowth of the Kayfabe channel, which is an extra fun bonus. Sam, I wonder if that really happens, man. That's funny. But happy drawing, everybody. I think I'm gonna watch that Richard Ramirez Night Stalker thing for inspiration while I finish this page up. Maybe that's what this page needs. Kayfabe crew, thanks for checking in. Fresh videos every single day. Gonna stream as much as possible. Jim's gonna start to do some streaming as soon as the cat's out of the bag with his new project. So subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. It's not notifying everybody for some reason, but you're in the running. Be good. Pre-order the comic. Let everybody know about the comic if you have horror fans in your life. And we'll resume this at some other point. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Cheers. Bye.